Hello everyone and welcome to another in our series of show and tell webinars from our Google for Education reference schools. And today we're going to be focusing on deploying Google for Education at scale, saving time and money, and we're joined by the team from the River Learning Trust. So I'd just like to introduce to you all, we're joined firstly by Google Certified Innovator and a long-time Google friend of mine, Roger Nixon. Hi, Roger.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and great to have you on the call today. And we have a colleague of yours with us. So Sally Owen is joining us as well. Oh, she is joining us. There she is. Hi, Sally. And great to have Sally joining us on the call too. So Roger, do you want to explain a little bit about the River Learning Trust?
Yes, so we're a multi-academy trust based in and around Oxfordshire. So we're mainly Oxfordshire schools, but we go down as far as Swindon. And we've currently got 8 secondary schools. And I was trying to count up earlier the number of primary schools, but it keeps going up. I think we're on 17 at the moment. And broadly speaking, we're all on the same Google Workspace setup. So we've got tens of thousands of users and knocking on about 7,000 Chrome OS devices on the setup at the moment across quite a wide area and lots of different sites.
You definitely, Roger, you definitely tick the box of being at scale. So welcome everyone, and thank you both, Roger and Sally, for joining us today. People are already chatting away in the chat, which is great to see. As we go through today's webinar, if you have any questions at all that you want to ask Roger or Sally as we go through this, feel free to just type your questions in the YouTube chat, and either at various points or at the end, we'll come to the Q&A and I'll get Roger and Sally to answer and explain in a bit more detail if we want to go into depth in any of the topics they cover. So that would be great to see. The other thing I would say is that in today's webinar, we're going to get quite technical in places. Anyone who knows Roger's love of the power of Google will know that Roger's built some really impressive things over the years, working probably with Sally, I would imagine, as well on that. But as I always say, as a big disclaimer at the front of any of our technical sessions, that think carefully through the changes you are making. Please don't sit and watch this webinar live with your admin console open on another window and start playing with all your settings right in the middle of today's session. Please take time, practice, make changes to smaller groups first, and so you understand the benefits of some of the changes we're going to talk through. So I always say, use the quote from Spider-Man, that with great power comes great responsibility. We have to be careful when we're making changes in the admin console, and we are going to talk about some of that today as we go through today's webinar. So Roger, I'm going to hand over to you, and in a second we'll bring your screen in to talk to us about how you are deploying Google for Education with such a fairly small team with so many students and so many schools.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so this is going to be it's going to focus on devices rather than people. And I'm going to show you how we manage, look after, curate, and deploy policy to quite a lot of devices. As I said, we've got 6,700 and something Chrome OS devices, which are scattered across 20 plus sites. We've also got a lot of Windows devices. We're going to talk about how you can manage the Windows devices as well. That will be a little bit further down the line this afternoon. And we'll also touch on things like how you can have a single point of login for all of your users. So on pretty much any device, so that's Chrome OS, Windows devices, and even Apple devices as well. And the thrust for us over the years has really been simplification of the management, being able to manage a large number of devices and users across many sites, and being able to do that from anywhere without having a complicated server infrastructure or any server infrastructure at all. So a number of the sites that we look after have no servers on site whatsoever, serverless schools, and all the management of devices and users is purely done in the cloud. And because we've got so many sites, I couldn't really cope with lots of separate management consoles, and I couldn't cope with lots of separate systems to manage those people and those devices. And we're very much at a point now where the Google Admin Console can pretty much do everything that you want it to do in terms of managing people, the experience they get, and the devices they're using. And I can do that from wherever I want to do it, my armchair at home or in my office at the moment, and it doesn't really matter. And I don't need to look after lots of physical pieces of kit on all of those different sites. And that's got the big benefit for us that we don't need a huge team to manage lots and lots of devices over lots and lots of different sites. So there's me. I work 3 days a week for the River Learning Trust and 2 days a week for Wheatley Park. And we've got Sally, who contributes a day of her time to the River Learning Trust. And Sally is a technician and she's RLT developer. So she does a lot of coding in the back end. And we've got Matt Profit, who's our lead network manager, and he does a day a week. So we effectively are a core team that is equivalent to 1 full day per week term time. And what I'm going to do is just show you broadly how we organize G Suite. I'm going to dive into some settings that we use for Chromebooks and some I'd recommend using for Chromebooks. I'm not going to do a deep dive into every single policy that's on the admin console for Chromebooks because there are a lot. I'm going to talk about the ones for me are important, and then we'll look at how you can manage other devices, particularly Windows devices. So if you want your user to be able to log in with your Google account on a Windows device and get exactly the same experience, then that's entirely possible to do, and it's not that hard to do, although that's where it will get a little bit technical. There's a question from Jonathan about, do I have the same settings for each year group, or is it tailored to each school? It's very much tailored to each school. We have a root organization, which I'll show you in a second. We set good practice settings there, and then the individual schools get bespoke settings. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share a few things that we do to organize stuff. So there we go. Hopefully I'm sharing the right screen now. And what I'm going to bring over onto that screen is the Trust Admin Console. Now, I'm going to be very careful here because there's certain things on here I can't show you, partly because we're a trusted tester for Google, and partly because it's got people's names on it. And obviously I don't want to be showing that in a live stream. But I'll give you an overview of some things that have helped us out. So one of the key things, I like the fact that on the new admin console, it's bang smack in the middle of the screen, is organizational units. And this gives you a flavor of how we organize things. So it is quite complicated on our organization, but it boils down into 3 main places or organizational units that we use to organize all of these schools and all of these devices. So we have secondary schools down at the bottom here, and if I expand that, you'll find that you have our secondary schools there. And under primary schools, if I expand that, you have a long list of primary schools. Now those 2 OUs are where people live. So they're what we term user OUs. So we set user policy on there, we put users into those. We keep devices and people separate. Up here, we have an OU called Chrome devices. You can ignore all of the others. We have all sorts of hangers on in the trust that have their own OU and do various functions. But if I click open that one, you'll find, if I just briefly explain what these are, deprovisioned devices go into an OU called deprovisioned devices. Display devices, one thing that we use extensively across the trust is things like Sign Builder, and we also have a thing where if you've got a touchscreen Chromebook or a tablet, you can put it into kiosk mode and you can push a Google form to it. And that Google form allows you to create a bespoke entry system or a sign-in system for schools. So you'll see there's a number of schools here with their own sign-in system. So we have a Chrome Sign Builder policy pushed to each of these OUs for different schools. And then the 2 main ones are really primary school devices and secondary school devices. So if I jump into secondary school devices, you'll see the school that I'm based at here. Wheatley Park, and if I go into primary schools, you'll find that there's loads of OUs here. And within here, it's very granular. So the main one for Wheatley Park is assigned to specific users. We're a one-to-one Chromebook school, as are a number of our schools now. And if I crack this open, we have an OU for each year group. And that allows us partly to organize the devices in a meaningful way and partly to deploy differential policy. So from a technical point of view, for example, some of these devices, this is year 7 here, 2012 devices to 2018 is year 9, they get put onto one Wi-Fi network, one VLAN. We have thousands of devices, so we segregate devices by pushing different Wi-Fi settings to them because of the OU that the device is in. So whenever a new school joins, they will get a OU which is specifically for their users. So Beckley School here has an OU for its users, and in the primary schools, it's got an OU for its devices as well. And within there, you might have devices which serve different purposes. So for example, in Beckley, we have staff devices and student devices. And the key difference between those, a staff device might be one that shows the user profile on the login screen, and it doesn't wipe user data. Whereas these student ones here, primary schools, typically we use QR code login. And QR code login at primary school, if you've never used QR code logins with primary school kids, it's kind of magic. You have a QR code on a lanyard and you go beep at the login screen, no typing in passwords, no wasting time like that. I've seen groups of sort of year 1, year 2 pupils logged into Chromebooks in like a matter of minutes. So if you've never looked at QR codes, people like Wand do them, Clever Badges, there's lots of companies that do QR code logins. Okay, so what I'll do is just show you a couple of policies now. And this is where I have to start being very careful because there's certain screens I can't show you. But I will show you a few things which I'm queuing up on my other screen. So if you just excuse me for 30 seconds while I pull up my device settings for an appropriate OU. And what I'm going to do is show you one of the key device policies that we use to support one-to-one Chromebooks. And we're going to show you this for Wheatley Park. And let's drill into this particular OU here. Okay. So I'll just drill down here. This is an OU called Allow Private Accounts. And this gives you an idea of the device policies that we push to people. And you can see if the device is not returned, return it to Wheatley Park School. If I scroll down a little bit more, the device is restricted to certain domains logging into it. A lot of our pupils come from Garsington Primary, which is just down the road to us. And they have older brothers and sisters who come to us, and we're all on the same Google setup. So we allow them to use their brother or sister's device, which is why that appears in there. But one of the things which has benefited one-to-one devices, and we have a parental contribution thing, so we actually sell devices to parents, is allowing them to use them outside of school hours. So if you've never looked at this policy called device off hours, this is a really quite a cool policy. And what this is basically saying is when that device goes home after 4 o'clock and till 6 o'clock the next morning, any account can log into that. So the parents can use the device. So if they want a family device, they can use it as a family device. And in holiday times, we move all those devices to holiday settings, and that's pretty much the same thing, except they can use the device on private accounts anytime during the holiday. And that's been a big deal in terms of selling devices and getting parents on board, because it's not just a device for the child, it's a device for everybody. One of the important things I find, and something that's easy to do for lots and lots of different schools, is personalized stuff. I'm just going to show you a few ways in which we personalize stuff. And this comes under user and browser settings. And now I'm going to switch to a user OU. So I'm going to go into secondary. Let's have a primary school. Let's have Larkrise. Okay, so if I go into Larkrise, user settings, first thing you can do that easily brands that device to that particular school, so it's unique to that individual, is give them their own custom wallpaper. So that's the one for Larkrise. Family Link is an interesting one. I just caught eye of that. Yeah, you can use Family Link with Chromebooks now as well. So that is a new thing. I haven't used Family Link. And separate OUs. You don't know how to make an OU. If you're in Manage OUs, you just click on plus. If you click into a particular OU, you can click on the plus button there and you can create an extra OU. And then you've got an OU that you can put devices into, or you can put people into, and they will pick up the policies associated with that particular organizational unit, just to answer one of the questions which came up. So we just go back to this screen for a second. So personalization, and a cool thing that you can do in the admin console is search. So I'm just going to type book, okay, and manage bookmarks is a key thing. So I click on pupils for this particular school, and I can click on edit bookmarks. This has come a long way since it first came out, because you can click on here and you can add individual bookmarks and individual folders now. So you can put a folder structure into people's bookmarks if you want to. This is a fairly simple one because it's for primary schools, but that creates this sort of effect. So I get WPS admin bookmarks because I'm an admin user. Okay, there's a quick question with offsite filtering. So for filtering, to manage it all in one place, we use Securely, and that gives us on and offsite filtering, and we can add policies for each school as they join the scheme. Offsite filtering on private accounts is the responsibility of the parents, and before we enable private accounts on a device, they have to sign a thing to say they understand that if they're on a private account, it's basically their responsibility. And bear in mind, they own the device, so they're just asking for permission to use a private account on it. So roughly half the devices we sell have private accounts on it. But just to answer that quick question. So bookmarks are a key thing. Okay, we're all about making an experience for people, really, and that's kind of where I come from when we do this. We just don't give out a device and it just looks like, oh, any old Chromebook. It looks like it's a device that belongs to that particular school and it's sort of bespoke to that particular school. If I go back to user and browser settings, another one. So that's bookmarks. If I click on start, see, I don't ever scroll down the long list of policies because that takes me forever to find stuff. I just click on there. The other one is page to load at startup. So if you've never used this, this literally fires out that link. Okay, so when they open up the Chromebook, they get that particular site. I'm not sure I've got permission to see this one, but I can show you the sort of thing. This is just a really simple portal for pupils. If I go on to the staff one that we use at Wheatley Park, this is all done with Google Sites. Really easy to manage, really easy to set up, and we've basically got a template for a staff portal and a template for a pupil portal, and we just put on a custom logo, bang it out to the particular school. So when they open up that device, it's easy to use because they've got all the icons for mail, drive, classroom, and all the rest of it, and it's just like it's their device, it's their school's device. It's not just some sort of generic River Learning Trust experience. Okay. So there's some very simple policies which you can use to personalize the experience, and you can also push. If I do wall there, you can see the same wallpaper is pushed to them. And the way we do wallpapers, if you want an easy way for doing wallpapers, is I create them on Google Drawings, and then I convert them into a JPEG, and I upload them into the admin console, and just make sure they're 1920 by 1080. So 1080p images are what you want for wallpapers, and keep them simple. Okay, so all of ours look kind of like that with the RLT logo and something that's unique to the school. I just pick a color from the school website typically when I make them. It takes me seconds to make one of these things with Google Drawings. Awesome tool, Google Drawings. So that's a couple of things about Chromebooks. There are loads of settings, and one of the great things about Chromebooks in terms of managing them at scale is that when you deploy a Chromebook, and deploying a Chromebook is very easy, then the next time we see the vast majority of Chromebooks, and remember we've got 6,700 of them, is A, when they break a screen, which isn't that often given the number of devices we have, or B, when it comes time to decommission that device, and then we generally do that remotely. You can decommission it in the admin console, and you can also use GAM. If you've never used GAM, there is a command line tool called GAM, which you can install and set up and allows you to bulk decommission devices. So we can manage thousands of devices with very few people, all in one place, all very easily. And the admin console settings kind of do what they say on the tin. Okay. The other thing that we do push is apps. And I just want to point out a couple of things here. There's a nice yellow plus button to add an app. So you can add a Chrome Web Store app, or you can add Android apps. When you're talking about apps, I would always say less is more. Okay, only ever force install an app. So that's an option when you can see that this is one of my apps, Chemistry at Wheatley Park School. It's allowed to be installed, but I could force install it, or I could make it appear on the shelf or the bar at the bottom. Okay, so again, that's another way you can personalize devices by pushing out specific applications to them. But first time somebody logs into the device, the more apps you push out to them, the longer the sort of whole login process becomes, and then the apps have to sync, and that requires bandwidth. And if your bandwidth is limited, just bear that in mind. And the other thing is when you add an app from the Google Play Store, you're effectively putting that into a private Play Store. And in the Play Store app on a Chromebook, you will only ever see the Android apps that you allow. You will never see the whole Play Store. And there are some limits in the back end to how many apps you can actually put in your Play Store. So we hit some issues when we went above about 150. So only approve apps which are going to be used, and only force deploy apps where you really, really need to do that. So there's only a few things that we force deploy. Things like the Securely extension for content filtering would be a good example. Securely, Screencastify for screen recording, but of course the latest version of Chrome OS has screencasting built in. Okay, I'm just going to close that one because that's Chromebooks, and there's a lot of stuff online about how to manage Chromebooks. And if you have questions about managing Chromebooks, give us a shout. But we can manage thousands of Chromebooks pretty much effortlessly, and we can scale Chromebooks pretty much effortlessly. The hardest thing is literally unboxing a massive pile of Chromebooks, and then you just can get people to help you with that. The other thing I would say that you can the other thing I can say you can get people to help you with is enrolling devices. So I've trained most of our, some of our school business managers to enroll Chromebooks. So they doesn't even need me to do that now.
I was going to jump in, Roger, just to give everybody a reminder that they can obviously, you've been answering questions that have been going, which is great. But I just wanted to remind everyone to put questions, any questions for Roger in the chat as we go through today. So you can add them down there, or for Sally. We're going to hear from Sally in a moment, I presume. And I didn't know whether now was a good time to hear from Sally about her role.
Yeah, Sally, go for it. Let me just stop sharing for a second.
So you're very lucky to have a developer, even at 1 day a week. That's a luxury a lot of schools don't have.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I started working at the school just over a year ago. Yeah, I enjoy coding. So the first lockdown was a great opportunity to learn Google AppScript, and quickly found lots of applications for that. If I just share my screen a minute, I'll show you. Nope, I need to bring it up. Okay.
Here it comes. There we go.
Yeah.
We've got your
So
screen.
actually, if I show you this screen first, I made a list the other day of from the projects I've done in the last 6 months, just helping mainly admin people, but with different things, particularly with people working from home, being able to do things online. One big one I've been doing is the parents' evenings, setting up Google Meets for staff to have private meetings with parents without any worry of anyone else interrupting. So could do that programmatically, assigning meets and then sending out automatically emails from a Google Sheet. So that's been very popular amongst primary schools and secondary schools. And then just in our own school here, being able to create reports and had to be maths PDFs, doing them all electronically and sending them out automatically by email. With Google Script, I've been able to help them with those things. So that's been fun to learn how to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you. It's great to see actually how you're identifying there almost tasks where you can save time, aren't you? Because all of these, you look at your list of things there, you're basically rolling through everything in the school where we could create additional scripting to save time. And for people who don't know what Google Apps Script is, how would you describe it?
Well, you can, and it's a coding language. It uses JavaScript with extra commands to help you interact with all the Google Workspace apps and also the APIs. So you can have it attached to and when I started off, it was usually had a Google Sheet and then putting almost like an extended macro behind it, where you could speed things up, do things automatically, or you can have them separate to any Google Workspace app and pull stuff in from different places. So yeah, it's easy, I would say, an easy language to get into and do fun stuff and useful stuff quickly without you don't have to learn it all before you get started. You can and there's lots of help online. I've learned so much from just Googling how other people have done stuff and sharing code. And so yeah,
we've had a question on that from Jonathan about what the best way is to learn to make scripts.
There's lots of tutorials, YouTube clips. You can Google it, and Google themselves have guides on different ways to do things. So yeah, just Google it really, what you want to do. Look for app script, how to do something with app script, and yeah, there's lots of people out there with good tutorials to get you started.
It's certainly, and I too have built some things in AppScript. It's certainly a great way of pulling together a power of different tools, isn't it?
Yeah.
And spotting, I often described it as spotting those missing links between the Google products. Just thinking, it would be so much better if like Meet would do this for parents' evenings, and rather than manually do that and build 1,000 links, the ability to script that in is great. I'm going to bring Roger back in now, because Roger, while we've been talking, some more questions have come in from various people in the chat.
So the one about how do you build this up, and how do you decide to use the new admin? The thing I would suggest people keep an eye on is the Google Workspace as it is now update blog. Google have a blog and they post out new features. So I get emails like often every week, maybe several times a week, a lot recently, saying this is a new feature, this is how admins can control it. And that's how I get to know about most of the new features, but also in communities. So there are some good Google Currents communities. There's one called G Suite Admins, which is very, very good, has many thousands of users across the world and some super duper experts in who really know their stuff and will be on the updates like immediately and showing their sort of experience of those updates. So yeah, I would suggest subscribing to the update blog.
And then we've got a question in from our collective friend Ian. who's asked, with all your experience, Roger, what is your view on the average lifetime of a Chromebook across the trust?
Okay, so I've got to be very polite here because it depends on the Chromebook and it depends on who's made it. So we've found some manufacturers' devices have better longevity than others, let me put it that way. But if looked after well, we have had devices which have gone out year 7, 8 as loan devices. We have some loan devices and then come back to us at the end of year 11. And you think, has it been taken out of the box and come back in pristine condition? Mainly because they get their deposit back then if they bring it back in pristine condition. So there is an incentive to look after it. But looked after a device can easily last 5, 6, 7 years. And bear in mind the typical Chrome OS updates lasts for 6, 7 years. If you buy a device new, then that's pretty good going.
Thank you for that one. And then there was a question which I think relates to when we were talking about with Sally, talking about the app script. Kim, who is also another experienced admin user.
Kim is much more of a ninja than I am.
As pointed out, that another way of learning to script actually is to record the macros themselves, and then see what the script looks like, and then almost work your way back from that.
That's a good way of doing it.
Within there, and then
he's linked the community as well.
Yeah, he's popped a link in. We'll get that link put in properly. Make sure we can click it.
That is the place to go. Should I move on to some?
Yeah, we'll let you move on, Roger, and then we'll come back
Dark
to
Guru magic now.
Yes, let's go for it.
Just give me a second. Let me just share my screen again. Share screen. That's the one I want. Okay, so one of the things that makes life easy for your end users is if they have one account and that signs them into everything. So what I've got on the screen now, and I'll explain how this is achieved in a minute, and I did a blog post about this at the weekend. This is not, I'll click into the box. I'll sign in as me. This is a domain joined Windows PC. So this is locally joined Active Directory, but I'm logging into it with my Google account. And because it's a virtual machine, I'm going to have, and I've got two-factor authentication. I'm just going to use my phone. There we go. Two-factor authentication via Google, logging into an AD joined machine. And I have to agree to the fact that I'm going to be spied on by my administrator. Well, that's me, so that's all right. And while that logs in, this is another virtual machine, Windows machine I've got running. Now, this is just a standalone computer at the moment. And what we're going to do is enroll this onto Google Admin Console. But just going back to this one for a second. So I've logged in with a Google account, but Papercut, we use local Papercut here, knows that it's my AD account. And if I fire up Windows Explorer, then you can see that I've got my normal network shares mapped. So as far as Windows, local Active Directory, and all that sort of stuff is concerned, it doesn't actually matter that I've signed in with my Google account. Although I get some upsides that I get single sign-in on Chrome and in FileStream with my Google account. So people don't then have to sign into their Google account on Chrome. Okay, so you get single sign-on, plus the fact if you're using Chromebooks in the majority like we are, but you still have some machines managed by local Active Directory, people can just sign in with the same account. And as far as they're concerned, it's no different. Oh yeah, sorry. I just thought I thought you'd like that, Kim. Yeah, it is a horrible desktop, isn't it? You see how messy I am in the back end. Lots of garbage on my desktop. Okay, this one's much nicer. You'll approve much more of this one, Ken. So this at the moment is just a regular Windows virtual machine. I've just got a local admin account on here, and that's it. I've done some software deployment on here. So imagine a primary school computer. You're on site and you're building it for cloud management. What we have is a USB key with Windows on. We have an auto and a 10 file, so you don't have to answer all those annoying Windows prompts when you're installing it. And we also have a script on the USB key that installs all the key software. So something like Office, or what else have we got on here? We've got this thing called Target Tracker that some of the primaries use, Adobe Reader, VLC. This all gets installed automatically when you install Windows on a computer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just sign out of this. And we're going to log into this. So you can see at the moment I've got this thing called Add Work Account here because I've added the Google Credential Provider program, which you can download for free. But what I'm showing you here does require Enterprise or Plus licenses. So I'm going to sign into this machine with an account and I'm going to enroll it. And this is an account that's got an admin license. So this one is set up for Wheatley Community Primary. Can you see it's automatically populated the domain? So I've got an account, I think it's called Enroll. Nothing like a live demo. There we go. I've got that right. So I have to remember the password. I think it's that. Okay, it's cool. So we'll come back to that computer in a minute. It's going to ask us some annoying questions because I didn't build this one with the auto and a 10 file, but we'll come back to that in a second and see where it's up to. But the way you can manage Windows devices on your Google Admin console, if you go to Devices, as I say, you need enterprise licenses for this bit. Go to Mobile and Endpoint, Settings, and if you've got enterprise licenses, you'll find you've got Windows settings here, which is rather funky, being this is a Google thing. And you get to this screen. And the key piece of software I'm using here is called Google Credential Provider for Windows, or GCPW. And if I click on the little down arrow here, it asks me to sign into my admin console again. Of course, it would do. See how virtual machine's getting on. Okay, so it's at the annoying Windows bit. So a normal machine wouldn't do this bit because it's got an auto and a 10 file. Okay. And if I click on Start, you'll notice that we've got a pre-configured Start menu going on here as well. And you'll notice that there's no desktop wallpaper here yet. So what I'm going to do is just log off this account. I'll come back to that in a second. So if you've got admin license, enterprise licenses or plus licenses, you've got an option here to download this application. Okay, so download 64-bit, but you can also go on the website and Google it and just download it. There's this setting here for permitted domains. We don't specify this because we've got lots of domains, and therefore we specify this with a registry key that we deploy to a particular device so it knows which domain is going to be logging in. In that particular case I was showing you, it's called Wheatley Community Primary. If I go back to my Windows settings here, and then we'll go through these, you can set up all sorts of things. So window management settings, basically I've got this enabled. This is quite a neat thing called administrator privileges. So what you can do is grant specific users admin privileges. So you can create an OU, and within that OU you can put a user which you can log in as an admin on, and you can obviously change the password to that account within the admin console. So you don't need to have a local admin account, and you can actually specify to remove local admin accounts, which is a nice security feature. So if I just look at this computer now, you'll notice that it's suddenly miraculously become branded, and it's turned into a Wheatley Community Primary School computer as if by magic. And now you notice that the thing down at the bottom has gone, and it looks like the AD joined one that we had a few moments ago. And if I go on this account and I sign in again. And I agree to be spied on by my administrator, but of course that's me, so that's fine. We have very friendly administrators here. I'll come back to that in a second. That's going to nag me, as I say. Oh no, we're okay, because we've already signed in. And one of the neat things is if I fire up Chrome on here, you'll notice that it automatically signs me in, and I've got single sign-on, and then I can start using that Google account, and you'll see that it's already picked up bookmarks for that particular domain, making it very easy for the end user. So that's kind of what it looks like. So this is an entirely cloud managed device, as opposed to the one with the horrible desktop, which is me. That one is a domain joined device, but just with a Google login. So we've got these kind of two approaches that you can do. But at the end of the day, as far as the end user is concerned, it doesn't really matter which way you're doing it. It's just how you manage it. So in terms of the pure cloud management approach, you've got settings to apply Windows updates, which I disabled the other day because the latest Windows update breaks printing on Kyocera which we've got lots of, so that's been fun and games. BitLocker settings, and then the bit where it becomes really interesting is these custom settings here. So the custom settings, think group policy if you're used to local Active Directory, or think policies which are equivalent to the policies that you get in the admin console for Chromebooks. However, you do need to get your head around about how these work. These apply to users. Okay, so the fact that that computer now looks like it belongs to Wheatley Community Primary is down to the fact that that user lives within this OU here. So if I click onto that OU there, and if I find a suitable policy here, and we won't go into that desktop image, this one here. So this is how you apply a desktop image. If I click on edit there, you'll notice there's a URL here. If I copy that and open that up, you'll see that's where the desktop image is. Okay, if you want to know how to do that, all you do is make your thing in Google Drawings and then download it as an image, bung it into a Google document, make the Google document public and publish it, and then look at the published document and right click on the image and grab the URL. That's where this long, complicated looking URL comes from. Okay, and I've given that a description, Wheatley CP desktop image. Okay, and that's a policy that deploys a desktop wallpaper. There are lots of other policies here that you can deploy, and I have a blog post that goes through exactly the technicalities of setting up these policies. But you've got things like Wi-Fi policy, disabling first login animation, certificates, for example. We use Securely Smart Pack, so our devices get filtered on and off site. So this setup script one here defines the Securely Smart Pack. So there you go. It's a link to the Securely Smart Pack. There's other things you can do as well. If I jump into this Sandhills OU, you can also deploy software, which is quite funky. You can deploy Windows software to a Windows device on the Google Admin Console, which is a relatively new feature. This one here, for example, if I edit that one, this particular policy deploys piece of software from CleverTouch, which allows casting to wireless boards at a particular primary school who have them. This is called Sandhills. So you need to create a little XML file. This is literally on the Google site. You can just copy this. You don't even know how to do this XML stuff. I don't know how to do it. I just copied the link to the piece of the application, and you need to grab two strings, this one here, and the one that appears in this string here after MSI. And you basically grab those two things and pop them into your policy, and then bingo, a few seconds later, the application's deployed on your computer. If you're used to using something like Intune, it works in a similar way, except it works so much better in terms of how quickly the policy deploys and how quickly the application deploys. I don't know how Google managed to make it work so much better than the native piece of software, but it does. And if you update a policy on here, then it's a few seconds later, it deploys on that particular PC. Okay, so there are lots of policies on there.
Roger, there's obviously been some more questions coming in, so I think now might be a great time. I'll bring Sally back on as well, because it could be either of you answering these questions that have come in. I thought this would be a good time to pause. Question in from Jonathan. As an admin, how much do you use the analytics? And then he's also asked, and I think that might be related to that a bit, but also perhaps for the additional tools, is it worth purchasing the paid-for versions of Google for Education? I suppose I should do the disclaimer first that, of course, coming in April, there's a choice of different versions for Google for Education. So whereas previously we used to have the free edition and enterprise, and now moving forward, there's a range of choices. So there's particular features you're after, instead of having to potentially take enterprise, there are some in-between stages now. But let's back to you, Roger. Firstly, analytics. Are you using analytics much?
To be honest, no. In terms of looking stuff up, we do have Enterprise, or Plus as it's called, and that allows us to do things like Windows management in the cloud. It allows us to use things like the investigation tool and the fancy features in Meet. So yeah, it's been really useful to us. I think in terms of sort of looking at what's going on in the background, then probably the thing that I use the most is the investigation tool. In terms of if somebody's got a question about something, I just look it up on the investigation tool. Like the most common thing I get is, oh, I didn't get this email from such and such a person. So I just look that up and send them a little screenshot and say, yes, you did. It's in your inbox unread, and things like that. But in terms of the analytics, yes, you can produce lots of pretty graphs. And occasionally I do show people lots of pretty graphs, like the one which was the use of things like Google Meet at the start of the this year, and how it sort of shot up dramatically, like from, I don't know, 1,000 or so meets a day to like 10,000 Google Meets a day or something nuts like that. So in the sense we do that, yeah. And I want to answer Kim's question because he's wrong. It is actually really easy, and I've done a blog post, and I'll just bring it up in a second. So this particular blog post, where I've gone through a lot of the policies. Now I had to do this the hard way and look them up, but if you want to push certificates and things, you just copy and paste what I've done. If you don't want to look at my stuff, there's a post now which takes you to a link to all of the popular policies that you might want to deploy. And if you click on see examples, it has loads of examples now, like if you want to disable Bluetooth, what you have to do. This didn't exist when I started doing it, but the team behind this quietly curating a list of policies and exactly what they do. So the vast majority of policies that you'd need to deploy now on Windows devices, it's literally copy and paste. If I can do it, anyone can do it, because yeah, I don't know XML or anything like that. I just look it up. So it's not that difficult to do.
And I think Kim in the chat has agreed that you were right there, Roger. And that you are clearly paving the way in this space. And it has been great to see how now it seems simple to manage, or it's getting to that point where the Windows devices can be managed in such a similar way to our Chrome devices. Because it was always very easy to manage huge numbers of Chrome devices in the admin console. And so it's great to see that sort of strength coming across to Windows as well.
I mean, there's a couple of things to bear in mind. Things like printers. We use print deploy from Papercut on these types of devices. So when people log into them, I haven't got it set up on this one because it's not connected to the network where it would actually speak to the right printer, so nothing happens. But there's a piece of software called Print Deploy, and when a user logs into it, they just get a pop-up to click on the Google login button. Because they've single signed on into Google, that's it, the printers appear. So that makes printer management pretty easy. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is how the other way works. So my hideous desktop here covered with junk. So this is the domain join machine. I've got a blog post about this, but I put out at the weekend, but this is really not very difficult at all. If I find my mouse, there we go. If I find one of our most, Mr. IT support, that's me again. What you need to do if you want to log into a domain join machine is you need to create a custom attribute for your user. So you don't do this on each individual user. You can create a custom attribute. So these things are attributes here, like directory sharing, custom profile, email routing, and stuff like that. Some of our users use Bromcom, so that's there as well. So enhanced desktop security, and then you put in the domain name for the local domain, which is WPS / the local domain account name, which in this case is just IT support. It's the same as the actual Google one, and that links when you log in with the Google account. It thinks, oh, okay, that's that particular local account, and then it signs you in as that local account, but you still get the single sign-on. And you can do that for free. You don't actually need enhanced desktop security. You can create the enhanced desktop security field, and you can download the software and have people logging into Windows devices. The key thing here is when you deploy this to devices, you have to deploy a registry setting, and that's in my blog, so you can have a look at that, to tell it not to enroll in the admin console, which is here. So it won't be a device in the admin console. It won't pick up these policies. It's managed locally, and that's really useful in the context of like our school, where everybody's got a Chromebook, but sometimes they still go into a PC classroom to do some computer science or need to do something in that particular environment, and they just need to sign in just like they sign in on a Chromebook. And we've started rolling this out to some of our secondaries which have local Active Directory still, and that's been really useful. The other thing which I'd mention is there's a nice article which I'll just put up again, which is again very techy, but it's not actually that hard to do. This one here, we've also got some Apple computers, and again we wanted it to be easy for people to log into those, so our photography department use these, and Google have some instructions here of how you can use what's called LDAP to authenticate against your Google domain, rather than say local Active Directory or whatever. So this just needs the Mac to be connected to the internet to be able to sign in with their account. And you just follow the instructions on here. You set up one Mac as a sort of a cloning machine, and then you create a script on there and you deploy that to your other Macs, and then hey presto, people just go in, log in with their Google account, and away they go. Everybody here is very used to signing into devices with their Google account, and they don't need to know any other account whatever. And I don't need to have other directories in the back end syncing stuff. So I don't need to have a Microsoft-based directory in the background syncing everything, and the complexities and potential for things going wrong, because it's all just based on the one directory, which has kind of been the goal here. So I've kind of skimmed over a few things quite quickly there, but that's kind of how it goes. If I go to this one here, shows you how to deploy the registry keys that you need. All you need to do is push out the domain name you're going to allow to log into the devices, and this one here is quite important because this 0 at the end here means it's not going to enroll itself on your Google admin console because you're managing that one still locally. And this one here, if you want to know how to get FileStream or the Google Drive app to automatically start and force browser authentication, is nice, because when they fire up, when FileStream fires up, it just asks you to authenticate in the browser. you're already signed into the browser because you've got single sign-on. So you just click on accept and you've got the Google Drive app up and running. So we're minimizing the number of times that people need to put in a username and password down to once, and that's when they log into the device. And that makes it simple for us because we can't handle gazillions of questions from tens of thousands of users. We just need something that's relatively simple to deploy and works, which by and large these approaches do, and reliably as well.
Roger, just to come
I'll stop showing my screen.
And
yes,
just want to, oh, sorry, I did the wrong person there. Apologies. And Sally back in as well. So just want to come back in and say, firstly, a big thank you. I'm going to go through some closing pieces and also give other people opportunities to write in the chat. We often get asked in the chat about, can we watch this back? So this video is available to view at any time on the link that you've already got, because currently you're watching it on this link. So you can go back in your own time if you want to watch through what Roger showed us there and look at some of the settings in more detail. Then feel free to jump back into the YouTube channel, and it's always available there to watch. So while we're going through, I'm going to just bring my screen back in. So a few closing things, a few updates. People are obviously watching this event, so you've obviously found our events page already, but we have a huge series of webinars coming up this year, and all the information is available at bit.ly/GFE UK events. So feel free to join us on future webinars or watch back any of the events that we've already recorded this year on that link. In addition, we've already mentioned, we're giving Roger's blog a good plug today, but I must admit, even back to my time looking after a secondary school, I used to go to Roger's blog and steal some of his code and paste it in to various things I needed to do. It's a great source of information. So don't forget, you can visit that at any point should you wish to see what how some of that works and how some of that setup works. In other sites that are really useful, perhaps we're looking at, Teach From Anywhere is our hub for online teaching or teaching from anywhere now. It's a really good starting place for people who are more at the start of their Google journey. So a great site to look at. And as always, it's been around a long time, but the Google for Education Teach Center, where you can find specific training courses, guides to each of the products, the level 1, level 2 certifications, and our 3 top level certifications, certified trainer, coach, and innovator, along with all our resources in the Teacher Center at g.co/Teacher Center. Someone just asked, I think Ian just asked in the chat, can you share the link with others? Yes, feel free to share this webinar out with other people should you think it's of use to them, and it's certainly worth sharing some of the ways in which the scale is being delivered there by such a small team of people. Other than that, it just leaves me some time to say thank you to Sally and to Roger for joining us today. I'm just checking if there's any final questions, but I don't think so. Just lots of thanks in the chat. And also, don't forget there's an evaluation form. So if you found today's session useful, feel free to jump in and complete the evaluation form. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you all again soon. Bye, everyone.
Cheerio.